Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to return to Belgium, and it's been quite a while since I did a Belgian beer review for you last time. But for this one we're going to return to Brouwerij Van Steenberge, and I've reviewed two of their beers before, the Gulden Draak and the Gulden Draak 9000. But this time we're going to review a different beer, and this one is called the Piraat, pirate beer if you like. But it's a very nice beer. I'm sure I've tried this one before, so I look forward to actually thinking about it a bit more and doing the review for you. But as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. It is quite short for this one, but if you don't want to stay with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes and you will get straight to the tasting part of the video. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other Brouwerij Van Steenberge videos. So anyway, the history of the Van Steenberge brewery goes back to the year 1784, and at this time there were hundreds of breweries in the Flanders region of Belgium, and they basically made beer for their own consumption because it was safer to drink beer than it was to drink the water. But the brewery is located in a small town called Ertvelde, and it was founded by Jean-Baptiste de Bruyn under the name de Pier. And following his death, his wife Angelina Petronella Schelfo continued the brewery, and she in turn passed it on to her cousin Joseph Schelfo, who had actually kind of helped her out in the brewery for many years, and he was very familiar with the art of brewing. Now his daughter Margrethe married Paul von Steenberge, who was a professor of microbiology in the Ghent Brewing School, and Paul van Steenberge took control of the brewery following the end of the First World War, and he changed the name of the brewery to Brewery Bio, and after that the beer was introduced. Many different beers were introduced at that time, but he was very interested in politics, and he served as the mayor of Ertvelde and as a senator, and he was a real businessman, and he launched several different beers during his tenure as head of the brewery. But Flemish, and this was he introduced beers such as the Bio Flemish Bourgogne, which was an old brown ale, Leutenbock, which was a lager, and he also made several investments in the brewery infrastructure, which included a new brewing hall, new tanks, and he also initiated the switch from wooden barrels to glass wooden barrels to glass bottles for storing the beer. And in truth, Paul's instinct as a businessman always outweighed his passion for brewing, and he put the brewery into a cooperation as means to cut costs of running the brewery. All of this time that he'd been running the brewery though, his wife Margrethe had been with their son Joseph van Steenberge, and she actually saw this as a sellout for the brewery, having inherited it from her father. However, their younger son Joseph inherited her passion for brewing, and when his father died in 1962, Joseph took over the management of the brewery and focused on the production of high fermentation beers. Like his father before him though, he was passionate about politics, and he only fully focused on the brewery at the age of 64, having served as the mayor and as the senator, and this ended in 1978. But when he took over the brewery again in 1978, he got rid of the malt house and hop plantations that had been planted by his grandfather Joseph Schelfo, and decided instead that the brewery would purchase their raw materials but with very strict specifications. And in 1978 the company also acquired the recipe for a beer that had been with the Augustin friars and had been brewed in their Ghent monastery, and this was fine-tuned and then released in 1982, and he also completed with this the range of high fermentation beers. Now upon launching this range there wasn't a strong demand for the high percentage beers. However, since the year 2000 and the sort of flourishing of the craft beer market if you like, the market has seen a clear increase in the demand for speciality beers, and thanks to this the brewery has survived and grown since then. In 1990 Joseph's son Paul took over the company, and he modernised the brewery to a new fully automated brewing hall, a computerised barrel filling installation, and also a water purification installation, and he also kind of improved the bottling facilities as well and added a new steam plant with natural gas. So major infrastructure investments in the brewery in the early 90s. But he was joined by his cousin Jeff Vercelli, and he expanded the company's export market mainly to the US, the Netherlands and Italy, and the brewery is kind of further expanding that market as we speak. As I say, go and have a look at the brewery website and read a little bit more about the different ranges of beers that they do. Mainly they produce the Piraat, the Gulden Draak and the Augustin range, and there's quite a few different beers for you to choose from within that range, so check out the brewery website and see how you get on. But that's the brief history of the Brouwerij Van Steenberge, a very interesting brewery because it's passed down the family who've had different ideas about how to run the brewery and stuff like that. So a very interesting brewery to talk about this one. But let's get on to the tasting of the beer itself. Now this one is a 10.5% Belgian strong strong ale. I've also seen it described as a strong Belgian pale ale, this one, so I'm not really sure what to kind of to class it as really. I've heard that it's actually very triple like this one, and that's what I remember of it when I tried it in 6 Degrees North in Aberdeen. So I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. As you would expect with the beer being called Piraat, there's a really nice pirate ship on the front of the bottle there. It's actually a very, very nice label, this one, so I think I'll steam the label off and see if I can keep it for this one. As I say, it's founded 1784, this one, the foundation of the brewery. Very, very interesting. It says alcoholic content 10.5%. There's the bottle cap on this one as well with the nice pirate ship on it. It does have a little bit on the back in I think Dutch, English and French as well. So it says, this light amber Piraat with its full white head pleasantly overwhelms you with a bitter spiced malt and alcoholic aromatic mix. So should be a very interesting flavour from this one, and it has on the back Belgian beer. Should be served about 8 degrees Celsius, which I think it hopefully will be at now since I've taken it out of the fridge a little while ago. But a very interesting beer anyway. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. So as you can see, a very nice sort of smoky opening on this one, and we'll just get it out and into the glass. We'll just try and pour it a little bit smoothly. You always have to watch with Belgian beers because they have massive, massive heads on them, and you don't want it to go too crazy, if you like. You want it just to have a kind of fairly nice head. But this guy, since I've given it a little bit more of an aggressive pour there, as you can see, it's kind of stirred it up a little bit. But it's poured to be a very nice, typical sort of Belgian style beer. As I always said, it's cool to be drinking a beer called Piraat as well. That's one thing I always used to wind my mother up with. I said I would give up my master's degree in chemistry and everything to be a proper pirate. None of this Somali shite with the AK-47s. If I could be a proper pirate where you plundered and got treasure with swords and cannons and stuff, I definitely would be. So very cool to be reviewing a beer called Piraat, and that's just my being mad and Scottish, you know. But as you can see, it's poured a really nice kind of opaque sort of coppery amber colour. If I put my fingers behind this, you can just see it's totally opaque. There's no transparency to it at all. There's a little bit of carbonation, just kind of a lot of little bubbles actually going up towards the bottom of the beer there, or the bottom of the head, sorry, which looks very, very nice. There's a nice solid 2-finger white head on that there. It's not even creamy coloured, it's definitely white rather than creamy. Really beautiful looking beer, this. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on. It smells like a typical Belgian beer, if you like. A lot of caramel malts and a big bready yeasty character in particular. If you just breathe it in quite deeply, you can get that. Hopefully the head will die down a little bit, but yeah, as you can tell, a very, very nice sort of bready yeasty aroma. It does have quite a bit of rich caramel in there. There's a bit of spice character, I think, coming out too. You know, some pepper and coriander, which is quite common, kind of common spices in Belgium, if you like. But as is usual with this kind of beer style, you've got a lot of kind of caramel and brown sugar malts. It doesn't smell sort of too roasted at this time. It's kind of quite a sweet one coming out. But it's sort of underlying with this kind of typical bready and yeasty character that you expect. But there's a good blend of kind of fruity aroma in there as well. You've got a bit of citrusy fruit, but also some of the darker ones as well. You know, you've maybe got some. It almost has a bit of peach sharpness to it, and I think there's a bit of apple and pear in there. You know, the sort of mild, kind of lighter coloured fruits. But it's a very, very interesting smelling beer, this one. But it smells like a typical Belgian trip ale, in honesty. So without further ado, let's give it a taste. As I say, a nice huge bready and yeasty aroma to this one, typical of the Belgian beers. There's a bit of kind of spice character within that, pepper and coriander, and you know, some nice caramel malts and a little bit of kind of appley, peary fruit sort of thing. So let's give it a taste and see how we get on. So this is the Piraat beer from the Brouwerij Van Steenberge in Eertvelde in the Flanders region of Belgium. Cheers. Yeah, comes across as a kind of very typical Belgian strong ale as well. It's got quite a bit of sharp fruitiness as you take it in on the very first sip. A nice kind of sharp, almost figgy and very citrusy aroma coming out, or taste coming out of it in the very first sip actually. So yeah, you've got this really nice fruity character coming out from it at the start, sort of pears and apple, and as I say, it does have a bit of a sharper sort of citrusy element to it as well, maybe some oranges and a little bit of peach. It's actually a very sharp kind of citrusy aroma coming out of this one, although a peach is perhaps more of a kind of tropical fruit with this one. Not sure if you can hear that, but there's some airseas on motorbikes flying around outside my house at the moment. I do like motorbikes, so I shouldn't call them RCs, but happens sometimes. But as I say, you're opening up with a very nice fruity aroma or taste on this one. Sorry, a lot of nice apples, some really sharp kind of peachy character, and a little bit of orangey flavour in it as well. It's quite sharp actually. You get the lighter end of the fruits, which is the apples and pears, and then you're definitely getting the sharper end of it as well, which is the peaches and orangey tangerine kind of flavour. But that's kind of, it has a lot of caramel malt underlying it with this one, and the bready and yeasty flavour is taking a bit more of a back seat to that kind of sweet kind of caramelly malt. It's a very beautifully blended beer, this actually, a lot sharper than some of the other Belgian ones I've had. You are getting a little bit, when you move past the caramel is very, very strong in this actually, but when you move beyond that and get into the bready element of the beer, you're starting to get a little bit of the kind of spice character coming out too, and it's almost as if it has a kind of fruit fused alcohol flavour to it, this one. It reminds me, it's sort of a very, very sharp and almost liqueur flavoured thing, this. In Iceland, when I was there, they had these Icelandic berry liqueurs, and it reminds me of that, but just with obviously a different kind of fruit flavour coming out. It's a very sort of infused, fruity, citrusy, kind of peachy flavour that you're getting from this guy. It's very, very nice and it's quite unusual compared to the other Belgian beers that I've had actually. Yeah, I do think to some degree there's a little bit of darker fruits come out towards the front of the tongue in the later part of the taste of this beer. Maybe some figs and raisins and stuff, but it's mainly a kind of appley and peary flavour you get at the start, than the sort of sharper citrus coming out of this. It doesn't quite have the juicy character, if you like, that you would get from some of these darker fruits, which is quite interesting. But just pay attention to the kind of flavours coming out on the very, very front of the tongue. The rest of the tongue actually has quite a bit of the dark caramel that comes out on it. Very, very rich. It's not quite roasted, I would say though, but it's a very rich caramel flavour that comes out, and you've got this bready and yeasty sweetness that just backs it up and blends it together very well. But this one, I would say compared to some Belgian ones, the flavour of this is very, very well blended. With a lot of them you can pick out the individual components, but this one I would say is definitely more of a very fused taste. In terms of the mouthfeel with it, it's quite mid-bodied, I would say, almost pushing the full-bodied one. It does feel quite thick and quite syrupy, but at the same time it's very, very smooth. It actually has a very kind of strong alcohol warmth to it, this one, but with 10.5% you've got to expect that with these beers. I mean, one of these beers, if you drink one of these, it's almost the same as drinking, like, I think it would be like a half bottle of wine, or maybe even more than that actually. And that was one thing that's been pointed out to me before. If you drink one of these bottles yourself, that's almost like you're having a kind of a bottle of wine, if you like. But it's very, very syrupy, and that kind of helps bring out that kind of very sweet caramel character, and the oily character of it as well brings out the fruity end of the beer a little bit more. But it's got a nice little bit of alcohol warmth, and in honesty it does feel like a typical Belgian beer. And overall, what I would say about this beer, definitely give it a try. I think the fruity character in this one's quite interesting and quite unique compared to some of the other Belgian ones I've had. Overall, it does feel like a very fused flavour. It feels like you're getting something that's very, very well blended as compared to some of the other ones where you can pick out the individual components of it quite well, and you can see it's... And the other Belgian beers I've had, the flavours kind of transition very well, whereas this one, they blend very well, if that makes sense. It's a very, very nice beer that I really would recommend that you try if you get the chance. So go and check out the Brouwerij Van Steenberge. I hope you've enjoyed my beer review, and please let me know in the comments section if you do happen to have tried it before. This is a really awesome beer and quite interesting for the little unique things that I've pointed out for you in the video. So I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I will be reviewing more Belgian beer for you over the next next little while before I head away on my travels. But I thank you again for watching the reviews. Please like, subscribe, share, comment in the section below, and I will catch you soon with more beer reviews, and there will be quite a few more Belgian beers to come. Cheers!